Lost in space and time for over 10,000 years, on a mission they were never meant to return from. They have returned from the horrible secrets of space. They are the Comic Shop.
You're listening to the Asugo Comic Shop Does a Podcast with me, Aaron Z. Lee.
I'm Lucas Brewer.
I am Evan Coy, slightly off camera.
And today we are speaking with esteemed local author and poet Jonathan Ashline, who has a new book coming out called My Pocket of Fears on Love, Depression, and Other Mental Disorders, coming to you through Kickstarter soon.
Hey, how's it going?
Jonathan, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you stopping in, helping us to have some fun here, talk about some interesting things. We're always looking to support local artists, local writers, local creators. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe how you got associated with us here at the Comic Shop.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Sure. First, Aaron, you got such like an NPR voice. I never noticed it until now.
I can break it out every once in a while.
That was cool.
I listen to a lot of NPR.
Yeah. So I'm Jonathan. I've been living in Oswego my whole life, 30 some odd years. Who can keep track anymore? I've been coming to the comic shop almost as long as it's been open.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
An OG.
I go way back with the comic shop to Arlene and Brian, the early days.
Excellent. So early days meaning this is like, and I don't want to date you.
Yeah.
This is like late 90s,
Yeah,
early 2000s?
I think late 90s, exactly, and early 2000s were the big, yeah.
And what would bring you to the Comic Shop?
You know what? I just remembered what popped into my head was Identity Crisis from DC Comics.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
For some reason, because I was like rabid for that comic.
What year was Identity Crisis?
Early
I don't know.
2000s.
I'm familiar. Was it early 2000s?
I thought so, yeah.
Was it any good?
Yeah, it was very controversial.
I heard the crisis events in DC are not very good.
Well, it was very
I
controversial.
don't think I've ever read one, but
Actually, yesterday was the anniversary for Crisis of Infinite Earths #1 came out.
Oh, wow.
Whatever that was, 1985, so 36 years ago. One of those random things that popped up on my comic book feed.
That's
so.
accurate because I am 36.
old fart.
Yeah, I know, right? I just keep getting older. What's wrong with me? Time.
Having a kid and everything now. Wow.
I know, right? I'm like a full adult.
You
Anyway.
really are.
Anyway, let's see. So let's see. What do we got? So we're talking about the shop. So you come in for DC Comics for
Yeah,
Identity Crisis. Was there anything else you can remember from that era? Any other thing you would come in to?
Yeah,
to look for?
I was playing Pokemon, the card game.
Okay,
Okay.
that's where I was going to go. Were you a Pokemon kid?
Yeah.
Because we had a lot of Pokemon kids.
That was, yeah, they caught me in the right age range for that
Gotcha.
game. So
I feel like I missed. I think I said this before. I feel like I missed Pokemon by like 1 or 2 years.
Yes.
That like my little sister was into it. My little brother, who were not into any of these things. But I was just like, it was just a year or two old. Like I just missed it by that little bit of time.
yeah, I think my older brother is the same way. He would watch the cartoon occasionally, but only if we were watching it, and couldn't get him to play the game.
Yeah.
I remember when the cartoon came out. This is like such the wrong perspective, but I was used to like the 16 frames per second animation of like American animation. So like when Pokemon came up and the frame rate was lower than that, I was like, "What is this? Why is this so popular? Where are the frames?"
Where are the frames?
But now, like I've tried my hand at a little bit of animation, and it's like, guys, if you can get away with fewer frames and still have a successful project, save your hands.
yeah,
So
Yeah, for
I've,
sure.
I've grown. I'm
you've
not.
come around to that.
Yeah. I've learned a lot more about manga and anime since then.
So,
But,
Jonathan,
yeah.
how long have you been a writer? How long have you been writing?
Oh, let's see. I about since high school, so roughly 20 years. Yeah, I think it started with I would write stories in grade school. You know, for some reason those assignments always got me. Where I can write about anything I want.
Yeah.
And which then usually it was superheroes anyway.
Can you think of any? Did you? You say you wrote about some superheroes. Can you remember any? Did you come up with any original characters or anything for that?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah, a couple just very generic names like Bombshell and
So who was Bombshell?
What's that?
Who was Bombshell?
Who was Bombshell? God, this is kind of embarrassing.
Well, we don't have to go into it if you don't
You
want
could just
to.
make something up. No one's going to spot check you on any of this.
Well, it was like when I was 10 and 11, here's my idea of a superhero, and I'm trying to be edgy, and
That's
Bombshell was like this hot superhero chick with fishnet stockings, and
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Little shades of Black Canary.
yes,
going
very
on.
Black Canary. Yep, yeah.
I
'Cause
like the sounds of that.
You would,
know,
Lucas.
You should pursue that. I don't know. Maybe make a comedy.
There's a
out of
future
it.
for Bombshell. Maybe.
Maybe.
So you found your love for writing in high school. You said really grade school,
Yeah.
a bit earlier.
Yep.
So what were your, like in high school? What was kind of the first thing? Was it poetry? Was it still superheroes from, your early years? What was it?
I hate to be a giant cliche, but it was a lot of poetry in high school. It's just like emo, brokenhearted. Yeah.
I mean, that is the early 2000s, right?
Right.
You're in
Emo,
you're in that emo
yeah.
pocket. You don't remember
Yeah.
this, Lucas, but it was a good time. We were all
Oh, I'm
all
sure.
sad.
There were some good
Sounds
things.
like a great
There
time.
were some good things in there. I mean, that's the thing about those emotions as a teenager. Like, I teach middle school, so like, if you feel an emotion, like sometimes it's like the first time you felt that emotion, it's just like takes over everything and like clouds out everything else. So I mean, I've got some embarrassing poetry that thankfully has been deleted. Many years ago. At this point,
I had a Zanga blog
I
that
did
I
too.
used to just write.
right.
I wouldn't say poetry because I don't want to say that I'm too cool for poetry. That's not what I'm implying at all. But it was more like lyrics, I guess, that I would just write kind of like abstract things about my thoughts for the day or whatever. So I have dabbled. Don't give me that look, Lucas.
All right.
some friends of mine when we were in college, we created Zangas. And we created some alternate identities for ourselves. My buddy was Tom Selleck. My other friend was
I'm silly.
Burt Reynolds, and then I was Chuck Norris.
So
And so we would interact on other people's message boards, and they would be kind of mean, and so Chuck Norris would come in and kind of set them straight. So that was our dynamic.
What,
in the
what
old
was
Zanga.
this? A Zanga?
It's like a blog.
A precursor to like a MySpace, even.
Yes.
I don't think there was any photos or anything.
They could be, but it was all inside body copy.
Yeah.
so same time as like Live Journal.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I had a Live Journal.
This
And then
is
there was
all way
what
before
was
me.
what was the what
I'm
was the
just
very there was something right before MySpace too. Do you know what I'm talking about? Friendster.
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 Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like the Watcher. Like I recall a time long ago when there was Friendster, and then there was the MySpace.
All these good things that you missed,
Anyway.
Lucas. Instant
Uh,
Messenger.
Welcome,
You
welcome
missed-
to the I Am Old
I don't know
podcast.
if they're good things that I missed.
Going back to the 90s.
So why poetry? I guess.
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
What resonates with you about it?
Feelings. It kind of boils down to everybody feels things.
Sure,
And
Well, speak for yourself.
I guess I shouldn't presume. And poetry is kind of like the quickest way to emotions for me.
Okay.
It just feels like,
Is it like therapeutic for yourself?
oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like it can work out. If something's bothering me, if I'm having a rough time with something, I usually try and type it out.
Sure, yeah. That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, it helps a lot. That's just my go-to. With Aaron, I'm sure you draw it out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although it's so like they were talking about productivity earlier. It's such a mechanical thing. I mean, I think it's just the act of doing it. Like maybe my emotions aren't channeled directly into that particular drawing, but just the act of doing it
Right.
calms me down and makes me feel better.
Yeah.
But I certainly have done drawings to kind of get feelings out. But it's so premeditated now that it's just like it's maybe not as expressive as I would like it to be. Because Evan and I always talk about Bill Sienkiewicz. I don't know if are you familiar with his work?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love his work and how expressive it is, and I would like to get back to that, but many pages to go before I sleep. But anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, that kind of like poetry kind of has like an aesthetic to it. Like that doesn't have to follow the like normal conventions of language, and it can kind of describe a scene. Was there any particular like poet or writer that you liked a lot in school, or that you still think about?
Yeah, Walt Whitman is one.
I always make a bad Walt Whitman joke here. What's his most famous work is
Oh, Captain, My Captain.
no, what's the book though? It's like Leaves of Grass or something, or I don't know. Anyway, so I'm doing a great job of sharing this joke with you because I make this joke to Martin all the time, and it's the wrong title for the wrong Walt Whitman thing, and then it's just like this awkward, like it is right now, where we're all just staring at me, going, "Why are you even talking? You clearly don't know."
Who's Walt Whitman?
Who's Walt Whitman?
I don't know
Who
who
is
that
Walt Whitman?
Yeah, tell me that. Please.
He's a poet from 1800s, late 1800s.
I think you'd know
Oh,
better than
wow.
I would.
Yeah. And they quote him quite a lot in Dead Poet Society. So
I haven't
that's
seen that film.
go see that film.
I hear great things. It's been on my watch list for
That's
so
surprising that you, as a movie guy, haven't seen
long.
Dead
Right.
Poet Society.
I know.
It's
So we often review movies on this show. Can you give us your 30-second review of Dead Poet Society?
Ooh, yeah.
Robin Williams quoting poetry.
That's all you need
That's
to know.
all you need. And it's a really profound movie. It stuck with me quite a bit over
Yeah.
the years. I come back to it quite often. It's all about carpe diem and seizing the day, and I had that in mind when I made the Kickstarter.
Do we want to talk about the Kickstarter?
Should we get into the Kickstarter
Yeah, so
now?
the-
Do you want to pull it up on the?
I will pull up the link. There we go. Beautiful.
So the book is called My Pocket of Fears on Love, Depression, and Other Mental Disorders. So maybe before we even get into the Kickstarter, how did this collection of writing come together?
It was never intended to be a book.
Mm-hmm.
I was writing poetry over the last. I noticed when I was pulling all these poems together and finding old poems, most of them were written over the year 2000, when we were really in that like lockdown.
I mean 2020.
2020, yeah.
Sure, yeah.
It does seem like it's been going on since
Yes,
the year
2000.
Oh,
Yeah,
it
I
does,
was like,
yeah.
it's been that long, right?
Feels it, yeah.
I feel 20 years older.
And yeah, and so I think a lot of them came out of isolation and channeling the feelings from that pandemic and going through that. And I was out of work for a long time, and so writing was like my main product every day.
That's interesting. And I'm not sure if, Aaron, you had a similar experience, but at the beginning of the pandemic, I found myself writing a ton of music.
Mm-hmm.
And I was having a difficult time writing songs, I guess, but I just felt like I leveled up in terms of my music game of like, it was a very like, you're in an apartment by yourself, and like, I'm not seeing my parents. I'm not seeing, I was coming to here, I guess, to put in books for a few hours a day. But like, it was just a lot of like solitary time to reflect. And I have a hard time, I think. I write a lot too. Mm-hmm. But I think that when I write things, or I still write like lyrics and things like that, I get so abstract and weird because I think it's difficult for me to talk about emotions.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I do think that you've
that's how I write stuff too. Like it's tough to talk direct emotions for me. So like I think that's why my stuff is so outlandish a lot of the time, is because then like inside the outlandish stuff I can creep in a little bit of like real emotion and real thoughts in there. So it's like sugar with the medicine. That's kind of how I do it.
Did you experience anything like that during the pandemic? Like in terms of, obviously you're married, you had just gotten your dog. I think you had a little bit more stimulus maybe, but was there anything you noticed about your creative output at the beginning? Or
I mean, definitely increased, because I mean, it was at the early times when like we were putting up like asynchronous work for students, so it was not as much work during the day. So I would be working on a lot of stuff. I did like a ton of fan art. I don't know if you saw this on Instagram, but there was a fan art challenge, like drawing 6 fan arts. I did like 3 sets of them.
Mm-hmm.
I just like solicited them from different people online, like one from somebody I've never met, one from my brother-in-law, and then one from my old radio co-host way back when I was at Alfred State. So I was working on those, and then also working on my Wesley comic, and it was just like an explosion of working on all of that stuff. And I did have a dog, I did have my wife, so I think I had a more pleasant experience than probably a lot of people.
I can't imagine, like for you, like just to be in an apartment, yourself in an apartment with no one around. It's just you for months.
And I feel like we're going to talk on a lot of personal things for this. This will be a little bit different than our normal podcast, but like that's just I live a very solitary life. Beyond here, beyond these four walls, I go home. It's just me. Like that's just
Sure.
So. But I even more so, I think the pandemic, and maybe to Jonathan's point, where his creativity came from. Yeah, like it was really focused because there was not a pressure, I guess, but like everybody was feeling this
Anxiety.
This overwhelming dread.
So
really.
let's go back to some of your stuff. So this was mostly a collection coming out of your feelings during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And was this something that just was self-fulfilled, or was this something that like you took advice from to like channel your emotions in that, or was it
a little bit? I just started actually like one-on-one psychotherapy right before the pandemic. So when that transitioned to telehealth, I was still seeing somebody every week. And my counselor certainly encouraged the writing. And I think together we wrote back and forth, like emails like crazy. Just somebody to talk to, outside of the house.
Yeah.
I remember being very depressed. I dropped out of college for a while when I was like 19, and I remember going to a shrink, and that was one of the things that they suggested. They wanted me to I said, well, I like to draw. And so they were encouraging me to draw, and then they were trying to help me, pull out the ideas of what are you drawing? How does it relate to you? And I never quite. It just felt too heavy-handed. It just I feel like the drawings that I was doing were very much like I remember very boxy. I have a very boxy style, and like they kept on trying to dig into, well, why is everything so boxy? And it's like, I don't know, like that's just how I learned to draw, like copying boxy comic book art that I like.
It's like sometimes a cigar is a cigar.
But I do think that there's something to that. Like I'm sure on a subconscious level, like there's probably things in there that I was not unwilling to look at, but just too easily dismissing, saying this is just something silly and fun, but there's not a deeper meaning. But even like Aaron was mentioning with his art, like, well, maybe you're hiding little things in there that like trigger different, deeper emotions or deeper thoughts. I don't know.
Yeah, I think certainly when everyone's under that kind of pressure of a pandemic and we're all locked down, I think it does bring about a lot of emotions in whatever work you're doing, probably beyond writing and drawing and,
Cleaning your groceries with bleach.
Yeah.
Such a bizarre time.
It
It
is.
just affects every aspect of your life.
So how did you stay focused on that? Because again, I have a hard time, I think, dealing with emotion, and it's something I would much rather ignore or.
I delay emotion.
Okay, well,
I feel it later,
yeah.
or if at all, I try to suppress it, push it away.
Are you a person like me who tries to get rid of the highs and lows?
Yes,
just
exactly.
by
And just try to ride an even line?
That's
Well,
right.
How
Yes.
does that make sense to you, Jonathan?
It does.
That doesn't make sense to me. I'll be honest.
Have we talked about this before?
No.
That's so wild.
Yeah.
Why don't you explain? What?
I don't know how to explain. I just feel like, to me, it's when I'm driving and I see a green light. That's the most frustrating thing in the world, because it's a possibility it's going to turn red before I get there, and I'm going to have to wait the longest amount of time possible before I can travel through that. And that's how I think of life sometimes, is that if I see something positive in the distance, I go, what's the most negative thing that could happen in the time it takes me to reach that positive thing? And how I don't want my expectations to be too high,
Yes.
because I don't, a very bizarre way of thinking maybe, but like I I counterbalance any positivity I see with, well, this could happen. Well, that could happen. Like, don't get too excited. Temper your excitement. And also, I don't like to deal with those lows. And I feel like oftentimes maybe I'm better at dealing with a low because, conversely to my green light, red light analogy, if things are bad, I go, well, maybe this is as bad as it's going to. And I'm going to try to think about, like, what's the positive thing maybe to come out of this.
silver lining it.
I don't know, but I try to be a very even-keeled, not emotion-free person, because I think at the end of the day I'm actually a very emotional person, but I think I mask it well.
I agree. I agree with what you're saying there. I think something similarly for myself. Like if something goes really well and it's a big success, a relative, to other things. I try not to get too amped up about it. Although I have puppy mode, it's like, oh my god, this is so cool. Like, check this out. And
I can tell when I get a little manic too. I can tell sometimes I'm just like okay, I'm in that mode and I'm not wild or anything, but I can tell. Okay, I gotta calm down. Yeah,
because I always think you could fall higher from you get more hurt falling from a higher height. You know what I mean? It's I don't know how I'm doing any kind of this mental gymnastics, but I have this image of myself, trying to not get too amped up when something's going well, so that way if something goes wrong, I don't. It's not that much of a. I think it's maybe a jarring thing. Like the distance between those things can make it more frustrating. Kind of like to tie it into Spider-Man: No Way Home.
There you go.
We're gonna tie it back together.
Sweet.
When MJ says that if you expect disappointment, then you won't be disappointed. So so if you just are always down here, then if something is like a moderate success, you're like, hey, that went really well. And
doesn't she change that by the end of the movie?
She does.
Though?
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, she's just.
She kind of learns that maybe I should expect more than disappointment, and I thought that was a really nice part of her arc, and one that I wish more people would internalize. I think just because you can wait for that red light, but you might as well appreciate the green light while it's green.
So how did you stay?
That's poetry.
It is.
That's poetry right there. Holy
do you
crap!
snap if it's,
I mean, you can do whatever you want, right?
I lost my train of thought there. Going back to how do you stay? How do you stay in that moment of writing and feeling those emotions? Like I know you said you're seeing somebody at the time. I've gone to see somebody at several points in my life. Most recently, up until maybe 2.5 years ago, when I left my other job and I kind of found Stewart's temporarily, and then I ended up over here for like 6 months or so, probably longer. I went to see somebody, and I felt like that was a good sounding board, but also it's just hard for me to engage sometimes. And then when you're talking about emotions and feelings, and then you're being isolated because of the pandemic, how do you stay disciplined and motivated in that?
It's incredibly vulnerable. I think it's you got to be willing to bring yourself to a real place of vulnerability. And once you're able to do that, this came about after some, after the pandemic and some hospitalization and some realizations came about after that. And I think I was writing all throughout that period. So the book even kind of has like this arc to it of just deep depression from the isolation into more of a appreciation for life, and you just got to do the writing. If that's your medium, you just got to, the same way your weekly, you got to schedule. I think it's about making a schedule. For me, it was about 500 or 1,000 words a day, and setting that.
So you would set that as a goal, and let's say maybe you didn't reach it. Then what?
Then what? The flip side is not to punish yourself too much if you didn't make your goals. You got to work.
Lucas needs to punish himself harder, I think.
I know. I'm.
I mean, I'd start with goals. Goals are good because then
definitely.
You have something black
Baby
and white.
steps, right?
Yeah. Certainly every day you don't hit your goal, and I didn't hit my goal every day, but you're still striving toward it, and hopefully you made some progress, and you can carry that into the next day and build upon that.
So the last time I saw somebody, saw a therapist, I was also I just realized this right now. I was also into writing. That I had left my job, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I had a couple bucks, and I decided that I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I'm going to channel every business thought I've ever had, and I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to write 1,000 words a day. And I think actually I found this manuscript not too long ago, and this is maybe 2.5 years ago, and I think I ended up with something like 70,000 words or something like not a full book, but enough that there was something. And for like, it was more than 70 days in a row that I wrote, and I would shoot for 1,000 words a day. And if I couldn't do 1,000 words a day, I would go back and I would edit what I had, because at least I felt like I was making some kind of progress. And like, I only got 400 words today. I really don't know where I'm going with this thought. I'm going to go back to page 1 and just start rereading and fix my typos and blah, blah, blah. And my sister's a professional writer. She's a very good editor. So I always feel like the next step would have probably been to ship something off to her and been like, hey, like, can you take a look at that? But it was an exercise in discipline. Yeah. And to quote somebody who has no relation to the podcast, Jocko Willink, discipline equals freedom. And he's a big fitness guy. And that's his thing, is that the more disciplined that you are, the more freedom that you have in life, because you're doing the things that you need to do to make yourself a better person, and as such, you're going to find more time, you're going to get more efficient, you're going to get better at the things that you want to do. And so that's his big mantra, and I was always a big Jocko guy. Discipline equals freedom, but it's not easy, especially when you're dealing, like he's talking about going to the gym, which is a physical activity.
Right.
You're talking about diving into feelings, which is a much, I think, more difficult thing to be disciplined in addressing and looking and talking about and express, like that's kind of cool.
Because I hear, go ahead.
Oh, I just think that's a great analogy, because I think the same way people go to the gym every week to be disciplined, I would see my mental health counselor and be disciplined that way. It makes her, you're mindful of your emotions throughout the week, and I think that's where the discipline comes in. It's something you have to have like all the time.
Right.
And it's difficult. Like Lucas and Aaron and I have been messaging each other about like, and Aaron doesn't need to be part of this conversation because he's already the most disciplined, productive person.
Well, sometimes I feel like I could scale it back. Sometimes, like maybe it's okay to spend some time with my family. It's like, no, let's get another panel done.
Well, maybe you have the opposite problem that Lucas and I have. That I feel like we should be doing more. We should be creating. It's somebody who wants to like. I have no desire to publish a book. I have no desire to publish a comic, but I think it's important for me to write, to draw, to make music, to continue to grow as a person creatively.
Right.
And Lucas, that's your whole thing.
Yeah, I do have desires to make short films, which I have made short films, and to make comics, which I haven't made a comic. I made a comic outline though, several. And I find myself when I'm not in school, because I go for cinema and screen studies.
Yeah, I got my degree in that as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Awesome. Did you go to SUNY Oswego too?
Oh, wow.
Snap.
Yeah.
But
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I know a couple weeks back you guys were talking about your graphic novel class, and I'm like,
yeah.
I had him.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
No
oh man, I wish I could have taken Mike Rage's class.
Yep. He's a great guy. He's great. We should try to have him on the show.
There you go.
But anyway, I find myself like over winter break, over summer, not writing, not doing anything creative. And it's like, I don't know why. And so, especially this winter, I'm going to try to change that where, I'm taking baby steps. There's other things in my life I want to change, health-wise, stuff like that. But overall, I think I'm just going to take baby steps and maybe just write a page of a short film I want to make, or start making a feature script, stuff like that. And it's hard to stay motivated, but I do think, like you were saying, I need to start setting goals for myself. For you, it's, I need to write 1,000 whatever words. For me, it's going to be a little different, where it's like, do I want to sit down today and try to draw, or do I want to sit down today and try to write a comic outline and so forth? But it's difficult to kind of find the motivation for that too also. And I think overall I'm a lazy person.
I'm going to go back to the discipline thing. I think discipline takes over when your motivation fails, and that's what it's. I'm sure that Aaron, and I don't want to speak for Aaron, but I'm sure there are some days where he's like, I'm just not feeling what I'm drawing right now.
Oh yeah.
But what do you do?
Yeah, what do you
I
do?
just I muscle through it and I go, "Ooh, it's a little rough. Maybe I'll come back to it."
You muscle through it.
Well,
It's the discipline of just getting.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult, I think, for creative people to also be disciplined. I think that's why there are so few like comic artists that can crank out 12 issues of a book. It's just a rare feat of creativity, talent, and then just discipline.
Because it's your productive mind and your perfectionist mind fighting each other through the entire process. So like productivity is like just crank it out, crank it out, crank it out. But then the perfectionist is like, that line doesn't look right. This proportion's off. That eye is really weird. And you're like, shut up, and just cranking through.
My screenwriting professor, because this previous semester I wrote a feature script for a class, and she said, you know, we wrote it in sequences, which are 10 to 12 pages of a screenplay. And she said, if you're writing something, you think it's god awful, if you think it's just trash, just push through, finish the sequence, and then later on go back and you can re-edit, or maybe you just weren't in the right mindset and it's really not that bad. So I think, you know, when it comes to like, maybe you're drawing something and you're like, oh my God, I can't stand the way this looks. You just kind of have to push through and get to the end result, and then go back and see what you don't like about it.
I've redrawn panels.
Sure.
Jonathan, let's talk about your schedule, because you mentioned a schedule.
Yeah, I'm curious about
like,
that.
is there? And it doesn't need to. Again, you can BS us and make, but like, I do think that that's important, though. That like that there's, or maybe not a schedule. Maybe you said a structure to how you approach.
I think structure is really important, more than schedule, because it's not necessarily like what time you start writing. I don't have a set time that I start writing in the day. I get up, I have my usual routine, and I get coffee, and then I start writing. But just having that routine and that structure there.
Is there a set amount of time a day where you're like, or like I know you said words,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's what I would do when I left my previous job, was like, and actually 1,000 words is not a lot of words.
No.
1,000 words can go very quickly some days. Other days it could take forever, but also at a period of time that, like, if I was just sitting there stuck trying to think of what my next business thing was I was going to write down and do my book, I had to set a point in time where it's like, okay, I'm not being productive anymore. I need to go off on another part of my day and feel more productive. Is there like a set amount of time or anything that you try to give yourself to create, or?
It's usually 3 or 4 hours.
I mean, that's a good
wow,
that's a good
yeah.
chunk of time.
Yeah, this is what I want to do. You know, this is what I've decided to devote my life to, my career to. And so it'll be chunks of 3 or 4 hours, and then I take a meal break, and then I usually come back either immediately or later that night and do another 3 to 4 hours.
Wow,
I mean, that's
dedication.
that's
Yeah,
getting.
that
and it's,
is.
I feel like I'm using a lot of sports analogies here, but like getting your reps in.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And Aaron and I have talked about this before, that like you're not going to be a great musician if you play 20 minutes a day. You're going to have fun and you're going to learn, you're going to progress, but you're not going to be have a career as a musician. You're not going to be a comic artist if you spend 20 minutes a day drawing.
Right.
We've talked about it before. You almost need to obsess for a while.
Yes, that's true. And I think your sports analogy to creative fields is very apt. I think sports and creativity have a lot in common, and it needs that discipline, right? For that freedom, you need to be able to do certain things in order for like when inspiration strikes for something, and like to know how to articulate that in whatever your medium might be. Like I don't do a ton of photorealism, but I can do it. So like if I ever wanted to like see something that like looks really cool, it's like I can execute that if I want to, you know. But like having the freedom to do that, like you probably know more about like poetry structures and like ways to get certain feelings across in words. So like so if something inspires you with a certain feeling, you can execute that and put it on the page, you know, probably better than I could, you know. Like I could, I don't know, just like my square words, like we're going back to your square drawings, like just be like, just my crude, like, here's my emotions, you know. But like the more time you spend doing a particular thing, like the more agile you are at executing it.
Yeah, you just internalize so much of the tools and the all the skills that go into whatever you're doing. Your reps going back to that, just help internalize your skills.
I'm going to ask for people in the chat to suggest ideas that we can write a poem about. And also, can we go to the Kickstarter page and maybe just scroll down and just see what Jonathan's got going on there? The problem is he can't really see what's up there. So if you want to just I mean, I'm sure you've looked at your Kickstarter page a little bit, and maybe you can just describe some of the things, Lucas, you can kind of scroll through.
There's a video, and we want to play that.
Yeah, we can play the video.
Yeah, let's play
the audio's going to work for that?
Sure.
Hello there. My name's Jonathan Ashline, and I'm a writer. I've written all manner of stories throughout my life. I've been writing poetry since high school, and been writing fiction for over 20 years. Despite these years and years of amateur writings, I've never published a book before, and it's always been on my bucket list. A little background about me first. I graduated from SUNY Oswego in 2018. Go Lakers! With a BA in cinema and screen studies. It was one of the most transformative experiences of my life. I dreamed of one day writing movies and television. That dream didn't necessarily die, but I went through some pretty severe depression post-graduation and was even hospitalized for a suicide attempt. Thankfully, with the help of medications, mental health professionals, and loved ones, I'm getting better every day. Overcoming these numerous mental health challenges gave me a renewed appreciation for life, as well as a constant perspective of where I've been and what I've gone through. I want to use that perspective to help others appreciate life as much as I do, and also to overcome their own mental health hurdles. We all get sick, and we all have episodes of depression and anxiety. I'd just like everyone to know that they're not alone. And that's the real reason I wrote My Pocket of Fears, a collection of poems and short stories about love, depression, and other mental disorders. Please take a look through my Kickstarter page and consider buying a book or two. Help me cross a very important item off of my bucket list in 2022. Out of an abundance of caution, I'd like to include a trigger warning here. My Pocket of Fears contains references to suicide, rape, drugs, and a whole host of other adult content. If you think you may be triggered by any of the above mentioned, this book might not be for you. That said, if you feel that it might be helpful, either for yourself or someone you know, I hope you will read it. I hope you will enjoy it. I hope you will hate it. I hope it moves you in ways deep and troubling. But most of all, I hope it makes you feel something. Thanks for watching, and have a wonderful day.
Well, that was great.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
I think as somebody, as a creator of anything, the main goal is to just make someone feel something.
Right. Doesn't matter if it's good or bad. Me particularly, I like it when people are like, your stuff is really hard to read. I take that as a compliment because it usually means it's very
hard to read, meaning
triggering or emotional for a lot of people. It's not necessarily that's my goal. That's just kind of the space that I work in.
Well, it elicits that emotional response, which is what art is all about.
Right. Yep. So you got the page there?
Yep.
Yeah, so tell us again a little bit. Well, Lucas will kind of scroll through it a little bit here, but
I'm showing right now.
So how long is this book? Like how many poems roughly are in it?
Roughly 30 poems and short stories. And
Short stories?
And
Yes.
short. Okay, combined.
Yeah, it's about half and half.
Wow.
Page count is like 88 pages. I don't have the printed book yet, so I don't know exactly the page count, but it's roughly around 88.
That's awesome. So how's it looking? Do you think you're gonna?
Well, the campaign is funded.
Yeah.
Wow.
So actually, how much were you looking for, and where are we at right now?
Yeah.
So it looks like 600 was the goal, and now we have 965.
No,
Wow.
So you surpassed that by a lot.
And today was the first day of the Kickstarter.
Today's the first day.
Wow.
So that's
Oh my
kind of-
God.
That's got to feel great.
Yeah.
I had no idea that this was the first day. That is incredible.
Yeah, it feels really
Wow.
Now, full disclosure, and this is actually something that I wanted to talk to you about. I backed your Kickstarter.
good. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Now, it said that you will write a poem about me.
Yes.
What if I don't want a poem written about me? Can I select somebody that you could write a poem about?
You know, I was actually going to ask.
Like, would it be fair? Like, could I ask you to write me a poem about Martin?
Yeah.
Oh, Martin.
Totally.
I would, if I could, with my Kickstarter backing gift, ask you to write a poem about Martin, and I'd love to have it framed and placed somewhere in the shop.
Oh, I definitely intended to frame them all. I was a little worried that it might be presumptuous, but I'm figuring for the tier that you back at, it's worth like a framed poem and everything. So
I just really, I have no need for poetry about my own life, but I have a strong need to have a poem about Martin in the shop somewhere.
I was worried you were going to say me.
Oh, you're number 2.
I'm number 2.
If there's another tier of like things that I got my tier, we may ask for a Lucas poem.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the next stage of this campaign now, because it's successful, is to go into stretch goals.
Wow.
That's awesome.
To see how much higher we can raise it.
Now, I don't want to change the subject abruptly, but we do have some suggestions in the chat as to if we want to write, if we'd like to write a poem. Lucas, would you like to read some of those?
Just some of the messages in chat?
Or just what some of the suggestions were from Guild Jam.
Okay, so what about a poem about an intense Magic the Gathering game? That might be something.
As we were sitting here, I wrote a poem about Magic that I'd like to share with everybody. If that's
Excellent.
okay.
Wow.
I don't want to steal your spotlight as our poet laureate, but can I share my poem?
Please.
No.
Jinx,
This is not this is my type of poetry because it's not emotional. Magic, stack 'em and tap 'em, unflappable mana action, summon a kraken, then go attack 'em. Shit, I lost.
It's pretty
So
good.
that's my Magic poem. I just wanted to share that
Stack them and tack them.
I will share a story. I wrote a poem in 9th grade. It was for English class or whatever. I'm pretty sure I got like 100 on it, and I can't remember the wording in the exact poem, but it was something. It was like love is like Sour Patch Kids. It's what's the thing for Sour Patch Kids? Sweet, sour, gone. I was like, love is like Sour Patch Kids. It's sweet.
That's actually not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah,
sour,
it could have been way worse.
and then it's gone.
And Jonathan, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
You can think about this, but a poem about hitting your Kickstarter goal on the first day here is another one of the suggestions. So I'm not sure if you want to take a moment or two to think about that, or if there's a one-liner off the top of your head that you'd like to give us. I cheated. I actually wrote my Magic poem in 30 seconds. So
Yeah.
I had it.
And there was some rhyme in there.
There was.
I usually steer away from rhyme.
Okay.
Yeah, I just find that if you're so focused on getting the words to rhyme, you don't necessarily have the right words that you want to use.
I think that there's a restriction to maybe rhyme that could certainly bring about some creativity, but I also think that there's not a restriction, a freedom to kind of do a little free form, whatever you want to call it, free association, free whatever, and you that might be just as inspiring as well.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, your poem sucked. Dude.
I know. I'm not a professional poet.
But I appreciate
my poem
you using,
I wrote in 9th grade was better.
I appreciate you using rhyme to provide structure, because I think that's what I do. Is I just layer the structure and structure and structure, so that way like the next leap is like, well, this bar is the next bar, so that's the next thing that I do.
Right.
It's like up, and then when you go, like, kind of without that stuff, like it gets a little scarier. But we were talking earlier about like talking about emotions and stuff. Like, I'm the type of person who's like, it's like, okay, we got a thing. Okay, let's crack open the hood and we got to go in the thing and fix the thing. And like emotions are just not, they're not like, okay, let's run the diagnostic and fix the dang thing. Here we go. You know, it's like it's different than that. And so that's a little differentiation.
There's not always a clear path to go down. And I think that you're a method person. I think that you want like, what are the rules? If I'm going to go A, B, C. Whereas I think, again, Aaron and I are two maybe not good people to talk about emotions with. But with emotions, I do feel like it's not as linear. It's not if A then B then C. It's sometimes A and then we need to talk about it for a little while and figure out.
And there's not that quick next segment. It's like, oh, of course the sequence is going to work out this way. You need to spend time with it.
Yeah.
And try to figure it out.
Yeah, a lot of times you gotta sit with it too and feel feel things. That's often very uncomfortable for people.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Of course.
What is borderline personality disorder? I know you've mentioned that in your Kickstarter that you have that.
Yes. Yeah, it's in the Kickstarter. It might be in the video. It's a personality disorder, as a contrary to like an emotional disorder, but it's called borderline because it's on the borderline between the two diagnostics, and basically there's a whole host of symptoms for it, but it comes down to difficulty regulating your emotions. And so, you were talking about high emotions earlier. Mm-hmm. They go really high and can last anywhere from like 2 minutes to 24 hours. And the lows are the same way. And it can be.
Is this, and I apologize for my ignorance, is this similar to like a bipolar?
It's similar. My understanding is the difference is that it's the duration of the mood swings that are different. Bipolar would be more like day to day, and borderline personality disorder is sometimes pretty rapidly throughout the day.
More of a moment to moment as opposed to
Yeah, so people with it can experience 15 different emotions by the time they've gotten out of bed.
Wow.
That sounds exhausting.
It is pretty tiring, yeah.
I try to limit myself to 15 emotions over the course of a year.
Yeah.
Me too.
If I get that many.
Yeah.
Right.
Aaron, do you want to talk about Kickstarter at all?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, the Kickstarter's a success.
It is a success, yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, congrats.
Yeah, come up with that poem.
Yeah. So I know Kickstarter is popular, but I also know there's some other crowdfunding places to go through. What made you settle on Kickstarter as the avenue to your book?
Sure. Yeah, there's a couple other websites out there that are virtually the same platform. Kickstarter is one that I think is perhaps the oldest and the most well-known.
Yeah.
So you're kind of setting yourself up for success already by using the biggest platform that you can. I'm sorry, just trying to. I also did it with a few others, people online who are also doing Kickstarters at the same time.
Okay.
As I am, and they kind of.
Is this like a collective?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, we it came about a few months ago, middle of last year, when I bought a book on Kickstarter called "How to Sell Your Book on Kickstarter."
Oh, okay.
So there you go. And what is that book about?
Selling your book on Kickstarter. And that I followed that book pretty much to the T. And
is it still available?
Yes, it's actually just it's in like pre-orders now.
There's a Kickstarter for the next
I'll have to
Kickstarter.
check that out. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was super helpful. It really was. And then also one of the tiers of that Kickstarter campaign was to sprint with some of the people who wrote the book, because they're doing more Kickstarters throughout the year, and I opted to do a sprint in January, and so.
I don't know what a sprint means.
Does that mean you did a quick Kickstarter?
Yeah, just where the two of you, it's just a metaphor for the two of you kind of doing your Kickstarters at the same time. So it was really cool to have that kind of camaraderie and other people who still, have their Kickstarter up. Some have succeeded and some haven't gotten there yet, but we're kind of sharing each other's pages and supporting each other that way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe as the course of this goes on for the next few days, now we know that yours is back, so that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
If there's another one you want to share with us and we can share
cool.
via social, I'd love to do that.
Cool.
Aaron, you said you potentially are going to do a Kickstarter at some point.
Yes, I've been working a lot on my Wesley the Robot comic. Eventually, I would like to do a collected edition of that. The final issue is going to be like giant size, and it won't be out until at least late summer, fall, maybe even winter, because I've got a new kid on the way. So so we'll see how that affects productivity. I feel like I'll still be able to get a lot done, but we'll see. I can do it. But anyway, so I've been like looking at different printers and stuff, and like I have I'm a 90s kid. So like I really want to do like some kind of gaudy like spot foil or
Really?
holofoil,
Nice.
like some kind of like super tacky. But I just have to,
Yeah.
And so I've been pricing that out and thinking about Kickstarter, and like things are reasonably priced where I could just do it myself, but then it's like, but you're talking about Kickstarter. It's the oldest platform. It's got a reach. You could network with some people.
Yeah.
It could go farther. Not that my goal is to make a really cool book that I'm really proud of, that I think
Right.
is really funny and that maybe you guys might like.
Yeah.
But if it does more than that, I'm not going to complain about that either.
Right.
So I'm definitely considering it for the future, and I've looked into it a teeny tiny bit here and there, but yeah, I'm very interested in the platform, and I think it might be a good avenue. And so this is encouraging too, to like chat with you who has a successful thing. Not that there's a barometer for like other people having success too with yours being a success, but you
No,
have
it
the
helps.
experience of it.
Yeah, it certainly helps seeing someone else succeed before you've gone through it. And I had people campaigns I was following, and kind of taking notes on their campaign as it goes.
That's what I've done. I've found
Yeah.
some comics and stuff on Kickstarter that I've backed and followed and stuff, and it is cool to see like those things come out. And another thing that's interesting about Kickstarter is it's kind of a new distribution method for indie books.
Yep.
There's a ton. I mean, I'm sure you're aware. There's a ton of comic creators who do stuff through Kickstarter, and I think that's just a big venue for even established artists. Look at Rob Liefeld's successful Kickstarter he had
I felt
Yeah.
Scott
that he
Snyder.
never published.
Oh, is that a thing?
Ooh.
Rob. I still like Rob a lot though.
Rob's observations.
It's a great podcast, but anyway, I don't want to digress too far. But should we bring it back to so are there any ways that poetry and comics overlap? Are there similarities?
This was a really bad question I wrote down because I was racking my brain trying to think.
No, I like this question a lot though.
I do too.
I think of them as completely separate mediums. To be honest, I enjoy writing both of them quite a bit. I really dig writing comics because you get to play with superheroes and giant robots and stuff.
Is it?
Yeah.
I guess your poetry is more personal.
Yeah.
Okay, because I feel like I can totally see that, and I'm not sure if like I guess Aaron, like I feel like your music, I feel like the music that I write, and then the things I might write like write versus my art, like everything has its own little lane. And I guess I could totally understand like having your lane for like poetry is my lane to express my feelings. If I'm writing something silly and just to write something silly, that's my comic writing that I do. Is that kind of what you're?
Yeah, either the comics or the short stories. Yeah, I think the poetry is definitely a vehicle for emotion and figuring stuff out.
Is there any poetry analog in your comic world?
I mean, I think of like I mentioned Bill Sienkiewicz earlier because his stuff is so wild and kind of collagey and painty and kind of all over the place.
If he was a poet, he wouldn't rhyme.
No, he well, I bought actually what was it? Stray Toasters over the summer because they did a reprint of it. That's a book that he published through Epic Comics, which is a Marvel creator-owned imprint in the late 80s, early 90s, I think. And a place reprinted it, and I actually got it from here because I was checking the Diamond thing. I was like, oh, snap, I don't have to pay $60 for that because the original editions were very expensive. But I think with those collage pieces, you could put like there could be very personal type stuff, and in Stray Toasters, it's from a narrative. It's from a particular point of view through different characters. But I think there's room for that. Or are you familiar with Dave McKean, who did the?
Oh,
What's
happened.
that?
Did we get a sub?
We got someone hosted us. Brew Nerd. hosted us.
He's a friend of mine.
Hey,
Okay. Well, thank you, Brew
Maybe
Nerd.
just a big Dave McKean fan.
Yeah.
But he did the covers for the Sandman series.
Yes, that's why I knew. I was like, I know that name. I just couldn't place the project.
So his stuff is like so moody and multimedia. Like there's sculpture and photography and drawing and painting all mixed together. And I feel like that stuff lends itself definitely more surreal. And I mean, poetry can have some of that surreality
Yeah.
in it possibly. I guess when I think of like a visualization of poetry, it kind of becomes surreal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which
you
might
start
just be
thinking
me.
about like Van Gogh or
I mean, I love
Lucas, do you
Rene
know who Van
Magritte.
Gogh is?
Never heard of him.
Rene Magritte, or I know Salvador Dali's really
Dali
popular.
was another one I was trying to think of. Yeah.
Is
Or,
that's the
Frida
guy with the
Kahlo.
big mustache?
That's the big mustache guy.
Big mustache.
Good
guy.
job.
I do know him.
Although Rene
Thank you.
Magritte is my favorite surrealist. He
Okay.
did the guy with the apple in front of his face and the
Yeah.
bowler cap.
Yeah.
He's
I-
just more academic, and I appreciate that.
I
Like,
like-
Salvador Dali's just wild,
Yeah.
but like I like the discipline.
Yeah.
That's what I like.
Uh-huh.
I really.
Dolly was disciplined. I mean, Dolly got after it every day. I'm always amazed to think that he only died
Well,
in,
he-
like, what, 74 or something like
Yeah,
that?
I mean he was very disciplined, but like his compositions were just very very busy. Maybe focus is the right word
Yeah.
for Rene Magritte. To just like come up with a concept and just like execute it perfectly and like stop at the moment when that concept is completed and not go too absolutely insane on it.
Yeah. You don't like the extraneous stuff.
I mean sometimes,
Yeah.
but I just like that restraint.
Yeah.
You know where it's like I could do more.
But you're
that's
not
it.
gonna.
But I'm not gonna.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's because I'm lazy.
Don't call Rene Magritte lazy. He's a very accomplished painter. Very
Of course,
academic
of
though.
course,
Very
I'm
academic.
kidding.
To kind of like blend like the reality of things together. Where Salvador Dali is just not reality.
No, not in any.
So I like when it's just the edge of reality and it pulls you a little bit into the unreality. I think that's what I like because the contrast is more visible. There we go. There we go. I can articulate it.
All right, we have a question in chat here. What about doing a poem about the coolest guy you know?
But the coolest
Who's
guy.
the coolest guy you know? And if you don't say me, I will kick you off the podcast.
Oh, there's
Toxic Sins?
Is this
another friend of mine, another streamer.
this may be a friend of yours? I don't know how to pronounce it. It's O-A-T.
O2? OATU?
Oh,
Watu?
Do you- do you know
I
that
thought it
person?
was. Yeah, I do.
Gotcha.
Yeah, all my friends are blowing up your chat.
Well, thank you,
Appreciate
Jonathan's
it.
friends.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, I think we're going to start wrapping things up here.
Yes,
I just
we
want to play
are.
something stupid.
The Comic Shop, coming to you in 2022. It's the future. All new supply chain issues. Out of stock again. Increased pricing. More apathy. The Comic Shop, coming to you in 2022. Lucas came back. We didn't think he was going to come back. Lower your expectations. We fixed the fan in the bathroom. The Comic Shop, coming to you in 2022.
Beautiful.
That
Not sure where that one came from. but-
someone I'm mad. Why you mad? Said best bumper. Thanks, Evan. I would agree. That is the best bumper.
The
you've
bumper
made.
king of Oswego County.
I
Evan
did,
Coy.
I did another one that I sent you guys, but I don't think it turned out as good.
I didn't listen to it.
I
You
did
wanna do
listen to
that
it, but
one real
I can't
quick?
recall. Yeah, let's take a listen.
All right. Hold on here. Hold on.
I wish we had something good to eat for breakfast. Hey kids, it's the Comic Shop, and it's a fun part of a balanced breakfast. Chocolate and peanut butter covered cinnamon and sugar waffle shaped cereal with color sprinkles and marshmallow superhero bites, now with caffeine, taurine, creatine, and mescaline. Don't forget a little dimethyltryptamine. Did you just give us drugs? Are you a clockwork elf? I think I'm tasting colors. Hey, the Comic Shop, part of a hallucinogenic breakfast.
FDA
What
approved.
was that?
We've totally derailed.
That was
Jonathan
awesome.
Ashline, can we bring up his Kickstarter again?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I've got a poem for you.
Oh. All right.
Okay.
We'll go back to the Kickstarter here.
Okay.
Jonathan Ashline,
there
My
we go.
Pocket of Fears
Yes.
on love, depression, and other mental disorders on Kickstarter.
Let's refresh. Maybe it passed 1,000.
Maybe.
Nope.
Okay.
Unfortunately not. But
Way
still,
to ruin the moment. Hey, maybe no.
it's still
No.
amazing. You,
Yeah,
you
it
Finds
is.
a,
surpassed
finds a way to
your
step
goal.
on it.
But congratulations on having
Yes,
your
it's-
Kickstarter fully
Yeah.
backed. We're very excited about that. We're excited for you to share poetry with Oswego and the greater community. And we're excited to hear an exclusive poem written right now by Jonathan Ashline.
And those of you looking to complete your Jonathan Ashline collection, his works do appear in the comic shop Makes a Comic.
We don't have we don't have our document camera, but if you want to hold
we
that
can
up,
show that real quick.
we're going to
give me
do another one of
sec.
these real soon.
All right, if you want to flip your
Wow!
page,
Don't
there
bend
it
that.
is. That's worth a lot.
Yeah,
It
it was
will
also
be.
done by. I came up with the characters for this page, but the artwork was done by my buddy Mikhail Benson. And
Now we know how to pronounce it, Mikhail.
Yes, Mikhail. And he also did the cover for My Pocket of Fears.
Oh, excellent.
Awesome.
Cool.
Was that somebody you went to school with, or somebody you met later on?
I met him a few years ago, right here in Oswego, and we've been best friends ever since.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay,
All right,
ready?
so without further ado,
Yes.
Wow, I'm excited.
Aaron, can you set up this poem? This is going to be
Me set it
yeah.
up?
How do you?
So a poem by esteemed local author, poet laureate of the comic shop,
Comic shop.
Jonathan Ashline, author of My Pocket of Fears on Love, Depression, and Other Mental Disorders, the successful Kickstarter of 2022, January, presenting an original poem here for the very first time in the back room of the Oswego Comic Shop.
Holy crap! Get on with it, would you?
Jonathan Ashline.
Yes.
My friends are the best. I never thought I'd be here today. What a glorious day it is.
Very nice.
All right. Do we have anything else, Jonathan, or Aaron? You want to take us home?
Aaron, take us home. Would
The Oswego Comic Shop does a podcast with me, Aaron Zeeley.
Lucas Brewer.
Lucas Brewer not paying attention. Evan Coy slightly off camera, and
Jonathan Ashline.
go back his Kickstarter, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes.
Have a good night.
Godspeed.
Godspeed. Thank you.